A new RoboCop movie directed by the same director of District 9 being produced by MGM. This is supposed to be the true sequel to the original RoboCop film. It's going to retcon everything after RoboCop 1, so RoboCop 2, RoboCop 3 and everything that came after those movies do not exist. The only thing that does exist in the mythology is the first 1987 movie, the original RoboCop movie, and then it's going to be this one. Now, I'm going to do two things on this video. One is I'm going to report on this news, just let you know the pros and cons, you know, what this movie might be. And second of all, I'm going to give you a pitch for what this movie should be. And in all honesty, what I believe how this movie should be is quite different from the script that they're actually going to use. So without further ado, let's get into this news. I think this is a very interesting piece of news. First of all, they've got Neill Blomamp to direct this movie. And I think, in all honesty, watching Neill Blomkamp's movies, I think I've only watched two of them. District 9, obviously. I think I watched another one, I can't remember. But even looking at the trailers for his movies, like Chappie, for example, I always thought at the back of my mind, if they ever made a RoboCop movie, they should give it to somebody like Neill Blomkamp, or just give it to Blomkamp. To me, this is amazing news. This is absolutely amazing news. This is something I've been waiting to hear all my life. This is, matter of fact, this is like a fan fiction come true. Because I would have never thought they would give it to somebody like Neill Blomkamp. That was a little it was a bit of a wishful thinking on my end. However, it's actually happening. They're giving it to Neill Blomkamp. So let's kind of talk about what Neill Blomkamp had to say about the movie. Long story short, basically, you know, he says exactly what you and I would say about RoboCop, which is that it's a pivotal part of our childhood, exactly what you'd expect. But he says one interesting thing, which again, I agree with 100%, which is he wants to focus on the identity part. With RoboCop, you can focus on a lot of things, you know, the business part, the whole economics of it, the whole politics of it, the societal part of it, but he wants to focus on the more personal side, which is the identity. The script that they're going to use in this movie is basically a script that the original writers Ed Neumeier and I think Michael Miner wrote straight after RoboCop 1, and this is a script called RoboCop Corporate Wars. Okay, this script basically, it starts off exactly like RoboCop 2. So if you guys watch RoboCop 2, there are some bad guys, they've taken over a gun store or something like that, and they have one guy up in the roof with a vantage point with this Cobra assault rifle, this powerful weapon. You hear the sirens, RoboCop arrives to the scene, wipes them out clean, but there's that one guy on the roof left, and with that assault cannon he shoots RoboCop on the chest. There's a direct hit, the bullet goes right through RoboCop's chest and literally just retires him. That's it, RoboCop is gone, it's ended. That's basically the prologue of the story, and then the story picks up with two guys, they're two higher ups in this company. They find RoboCop in his preservation tank, they bring RoboCop back to life, but they can control him, and basically these two guys, they control RoboCop because they're conspiring to kill the president. And the president in this movie is basically the guy who says, "I'd buy that for $1. That comedian, he's a comedian turned president. And so I think Ed Neumeier kind of drew similarities between this script and Donald Trump. Which is, you know, hey, well, so yeah, that's pretty good. Okay, the script that's out there is called RoboCop Corporate Wars. If you can download it for free, I mean, it's just type in Google and you'll get it. The problem with this, however, and I'm going to get into this at the last part of this video, I think if you're going to bring back RoboCop, if you're going to make a true sequel to RoboCop 1, I think you should, in a way, remake RoboCop 2. Just make one more movie in the near distant future, in the same world as RoboCop 1, you know, before you kind of take RoboCop into this Blade Runner type of world, because that's where the script for RoboCop Corporate Wars takes place. It takes place in this Blade Runner type of world. I would love to see that Corporate Wars script, but I think that should be more like RoboCop 3, a third RoboCop movie, like a third real successor, rather than jumping into it right now. I think that's the problem with Neill Blomkamp, but I think if you give him a good script, because he's like Ridley Scott, you give him a good script and that directing, I think he can do wonders with this script. This movie, they're calling it RoboCop Returns, is a good title, I think. I really want to see what they do with it. Now, let's move on to what I think this movie should be.
officer. Think it over, creep.
I think that they should dial it back and do one more movie in the near distant future. And at the end of this movie, the prologue of RoboCop Corporate Wars should happen as a cliffhanger. Corporate Wars begins in the next movie, and that will be the true RoboCop 3. How I believe this RoboCop movie should be is as follows. So it should be around a few years after the events of RoboCop 1. RoboCop, or Alex Murphy, the person who's turned into RoboCop, his family are still alive, of course, but they don't know that that's him in the suit. And he does that whole RoboCop 2 thing where he kind of does just stalk them, follow his son around in his car just to kind of keep an eye on them. You know, he really does miss them and so on. But the thing is, he can't physically be with them. Also, he knows that it will be terrifying if his wife sees him the way he is. Instead, he doesn't let them know. So, you know, he doesn't really want to face his family like this. What he has demanded from OCP is one thing, which is while he's recharging. So if you watch RoboCop 1, he sits down on that chair and he recharges. What he's demanded now is that he be put into this kind of dream state, kind of like Inception, where he can kind of control himself in that dream. And that dream is basically him as Alex Murphy again, living with his family over and over and over again. Virtual reality. Imagine Grand Theft Auto, but in virtual reality. But this is ultra real, photorealistic reality that RoboCop has that Alex Murphy has demanded that he be put in every time he's recharged or every time he's off duty, so he can live in that world. He can live with his wife, he can live with his child, he can interact with his neighbors. And so this way we kind of get to see how Alex Murphy was as well. So I think this will be a very good device to kind of show you how he was as a person before RoboCop 1. And we're going to need to know how he is as a person, because the stakes should be very, very high. And I'm going to tell you why, because it has something to do with the plot. Now, the plot of this movie should revolve around the RoboCop model becoming inadequate. There is this new threat out there. I wouldn't say a new threat of drugs. I would say that there's a new threat who does things, or who kind of deals with people, or with innocent people especially, does whatever he wants with them, whom he punishes in a way that is worse than death. It's better to die than be left the way he will leave you. This guy, he has a little group, he has a little gang, and this is giving OCP a lot of trouble. Yes, it can be drug wars, it doesn't have to, you know, but I'm just kind of gonna keep it abstract. I'm just gonna tell you the nature of how I think the plot should be. But yeah, this guy, he does run a gang. They have heavy weaponized machinery that even RoboCop has to be wary of. So the plot should revolve around this criminal, this super criminal, finding a way to become super powerful. And the plot should revolve around a moral dilemma, that RoboCop is presented with this opportunity to upgrade himself. And this upgrade that he has, okay, will require his entire consciousness to be wiped clean. He will become, in every essence, in every way, shape or form, a robot cop. He will become what OCP had always wanted to become, and he will be powerful enough to stand a chance against this new threat that's rising. And the plot should always kind of challenge him in making that decision to take upon that suit, because if he takes upon that suit, if he takes upon this upgrade, that means that his memory of his family, that thing that he now lives for purely, will now disappear. So the question becomes, is your soul worth that of others? And so I think that's what the plot should be, you know, keep it simple, keep it straightforward. And I think the main opponent of the story, as he kind of gears up and he becomes like a robot and he can do what he wants, you know, he's taken over the streets of Delta City now. I think Delta City should be truly built up and running. This threat should really threaten the people of Delta City. In the end, RoboCop should find a way to find a hybrid, in that he does make a choice in the end that is both tragic but triumphant at the same time. This will be a good plot. I think a story like this would be very good for a RoboCop sequel, a true successor to the original, because it's kind of the reverse of the original. The original was really about a man who loses his identity and he slowly starts to piece together who he was. But this movie is about a man who knows his identity, who doesn't want to leave his identity, but a situation has come about where he's forced to make that decision where he might have to let it go for the greater good. He might have to be altruistic about it. And so there could be this very emotional scene when he finally, you know, approaches his wife and reveals to her who he actually is. And he apologizes, and you know, we could get some more insight into it, how maybe his wife tried to stop him from going to Detroit, and he still refused, saying that, you know, the people need me and so on. And so he went, and even at this moment still he's willing to sacrifice it all for the people of Detroit. And that could be like a little you know, this little emotional kind of thing that his wife highlights, like even till now you're putting up a fight. She doesn't really know how to feel, and he just takes her silence as she's not allowing him to. She doesn't want him to become this person, but if he must, then he must. And I think that's how the story should be. And I think in the end, whatever decision he makes, it should be triumphant. It should be tragic and triumphant at the same time, like a true sequel. And maybe someone should figure out, one of these criminals should figure out how to use this weapon against RoboCop, like in Corporate Wars, blow a hole right through him, and that's it, we cut to black. So then that will leave the doors open for RoboCop 3, and RoboCop 3 should be the Corporate Wars script, because then it would make more sense thematically. In the beginning, it's a stolen identity story, the first RoboCop movie. This story will be about sacrifice, and the third story should be about control.
Anything you say may be used against you. It's retcon! You cocksucker! I work for Dick Jones! Dick Jones! He's the #2 guy at OCP! OCP runs the cops! You're a cop! Cop! Yes, I am a cop.
So that's my idea for a true RoboCop sequel. Again, I am very looking forward to this movie. I think Neill Blomkamp is awesome. I think he's going to do wonders with this film. And we can only see. Time will only tell. And I hope Neill Blomkamp blows this one out the park. Thank you.